Bucket webinar. We are going to get started right away here. For those of you, if this is your first time being on a Bucket webinar, what we like to do is this webinar is mostly about just kind of covering all the screens in Bucket, show you where everything's at, kind of tell you what everything does, and we also have another webinar this afternoon where we go a little bit deeper, and we do that every Tuesday afternoon. We go deep into certain subjects. This afternoon we'll be talking about all those features inside of Bucket that can be used to improve conversions. So if that's something that interests you and you want to improve the conversions of your funnel or your surveys, which who doesn't, then I highly recommend you either get on that webinar directly or at least check it out once it's recorded. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Real quick though, if we could, if you guys in the chat, if you would please let me know if you can see my screen and if you can hear me. That would be awesome. I have gone before 20, 30 minutes without asking that, and they couldn't hear. So if you can hear me, please let me know in the chat. Just say, I hear you. And I'll pull this up real quick. Yes, yes. Thank you. I can hear loud and clear. Screen's great. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, June. Awesome, guys. Well, like I said, I want to be super respectful of your time today. I think this should take anywhere between 50 minutes to an hour. Like I said, I'm going to cover every screen, and we'll do a question and answer at the end. And feel free, as I'm going through these, to ask questions. We actually do have a Bucket support specialist on the line with us. He'll be answering your questions in the chat. So if I'm covering something too quick, just ask your question in the chat, and he'll answer it. If we start getting some issues or questions on a certain topic, I'll stop and answer those. Otherwise, we'll do a Q&A at the end. Nobody will leave this call without having your questions answered. In fact, if this is your first time, what we also do at the end of these calls is I will send you a link to get on the schedule for a free one-on-one call with a Bucket specialist. So if you're inside Bucket and you're using it and you would like some one-on-one help with someone just to kind of log into your account with you on like a Zoom chat and get over any issue that you have, we'll be inviting you to that later on in this call. Send out a link and you can get on that, get a one-on-one call. Those are totally free, and I'll explain it here in a little bit. So anyways, the big idea here is that no one gets off this call without moving forward and getting all their questions answered. But like I said, the big objective of the Getting Started webinar is to show you where everything's at, right? So that by the time we're done, you'll know exactly how to build a discovery survey and launch a segmentation funnel. You'll have all the pieces there. And if you were wondering, this call will be recorded, and it will be made available so that you can access it in the help file, and we'll email you a link to it as well. So let's get started right away. The first thing that we're going to do is take a look at building a discovery survey, all right? But before I actually jump over to the app into bucket.io and start building this thing, there's a couple of things I want to point out. Number one is that both the discover survey and the segmentation funnels follow the same workflow, and that workflow is this: you build it, like add your questions, add all of the skeleton and the frame of your funnel. Then you go into the design phase where you add your tweaks, your logos, your colors, the fonts, all that good stuff. Then you go into the configure phase where you integrate with your email provider, put on whatever tracking codes and all of that. And then finally, the last phase is publish. So it's real quick: configure or build, design, configure, then publish. It's real simple to get a funnel up and running inside of Bucket. So let's do this. Let's jump inside of Bucket real quick. This is the best way to kind of get you acclimated with the software if you haven't used it already. What I'm looking at here, this is the dashboard screen. This is the first screen you see once you log in. And I just want to point out what a couple of these elements mean. All right, because my account, as you can see, has a bunch of numbers filled in here. If it's your first time in Bucket, or if you're new, your numbers are going to be looking at probably 0. what these numbers represent are the performance of your entire account. So these aren't a specific funnel. This is everything that's happening in your account. So how many people have participated in your funnels and your surveys, how many people overall, on average, have completed your funnels or surveys, and then the average opt-in rate for whenever you use the email and lead capture forms inside of Bucket. You can also see there's a graphical representation just to kind of show you how the growth has occurred in your account. Again, keep in mind, these are account level numbers and statistics. We've got some audience stuff here, and I'll explain what all this stuff means here in a little bit. So this is your dashboard. You have these options here. You see these blue, orange, and green buttons. If you just real quick need to throw up a survey or a segmentation funnel, you can easily do that here. What I would suggest, and you'll see me doing this in our demonstration today, I use this top menu up here. So you see when you log in, you've got dashboard, discover, segment, audiences, settings, and help at the top. I use this menu exclusively, and frankly, most people, once they start using the software, this is typically what you'll do, because when you click on discover, as we'll do shortly, you'll see that this is where all of your surveys are stored, right? When you click on segment, you'll see this is where all your segmentation funnels are stored. So again, you can't access those from these little one-off buttons. That's why I always say just jump right into it using the upper menu, because you can also create new funnels from here. Real quick before I build the Discover survey as well, let me just kind of point you to a couple other links on the menu. Just so you know where everything is at. So we've got the settings option up here. And what happens in the settings, you could do more than just, you could change obviously your billing and your account settings like your email and all that. But another thing that you could do here is add a custom domain. Eventually when you start marketing your segmentation funnels, what you'll probably want to end up doing is using your own custom domain versus the dynamic bucket domains that you can get for free. You can, any domain that you'd like, you can set that up. There's some really simple instructions to follow, and then once you have that domain added, you can use it for any of your funnels. And I'll explain how to use it later, but this is where you will come add your custom domain if you decide you want to do that. This is also where you add your email service providers that you plan on using in Bucket. Currently, for direct integration, we have MailChimp, Infusionsoft, and Entreport. And adding those is real simple. You just drag whichever one you use down over here, add the configuration, the API keys, whatever each of these asks you to add, you'll add those here, and then you'll use the direct integration. And I'll show you, again, later on how to use these inside of Bucket, but this is where you come and add your email provider if you use MailChimp, Infusionsoft, or Entreport. And I'll explain, if you don't use those, I'll explain to you how to use your email service provider with Bucket here shortly. All right, so basically, I just wanted to show you the settings screen so you can see what all this stuff is and where it's at. And then finally, I want to point you to the help. Anytime you need help with any of our features, we've got a great help file, and you can walk through here, search for whatever it is you're looking for, and if it's a question about a feature or something working inside of Bucket, chances are very high that you can find the answer right here in the help. Okay, so let's do this. Let's jump back over into Bucket. I'm going to hit dashboard one more time just so we can start from the very beginning, and let's walk through building a Discover survey. So like I said before, you could click this blue button where it says create new Discover survey, but what I recommend is that you click on the Discover link in the top menu, and that will take you to all your surveys. And then in the beginning, you're probably going to have, you'll have none in there, but it's just a good practice just to know exactly where that's at. So when you're going to build a new Discover survey in Bucket on this page, what you'll do is you'll just click the little blue plus sign where it says Create Discover Survey. Click on that. And then you get this option here, full page or button. For the purpose of this demo, and probably for a majority of your surveys, you're going to use the full page. What that is the entire survey is done inside of a bucket. And then what you'll do when you publish the survey is you get a link that you send to people like through email or on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you plan on marketing your survey. If you plan on sending people a link to that survey, you'll be using the full page. But let's say you have a high traffic homepage where you want to put a survey, or a blog post where you want to get a survey from a specific traffic source. And in that case, what you could do, you could use a link and just send them off to the survey, or you could generate a button and the survey would pop up on the page. So they wouldn't even have to leave the page. So they would click the button to take the survey pops up in front of them, they walk through it, they stay on your website. So that's the difference between the two. But like I said, for this purpose, we're going to be using full page. Now, once you choose full page, what you're going to see is the add public name, or just basically name your survey. Here's the thing, where it says add public name, a lot of people think that means that it's something that their audience is going to see. Nobody but you will see this name. By public name, that just means this is the name that you'll see throughout the software and anywhere else where you need to reference your own survey. So saying that, I highly, highly, highly recommend you use a naming convention that you will instantly recognize. Use names that you'll recognize right off the bat. I'm going to actually, let me jump back out of here and show you what would happen if you didn't do that. So as you can see here, I've got what, 45 surveys in here, and you may not ever have 45. I mean, I create one every couple of days, but as you can see, if I didn't name my surveys something very obvious right off the bat, I would go crazy. I would have to open every single one and try to figure it out. So again, sorry for harping on the naming part, but I just want you guys to know I am very empathetic with you. I want you to be able to use this without tearing your hair out, and so naming is super duper important, all right? So one thing I do want to show you too, because I'm actually not going to create from scratch a survey, what I am going to do is I'm going to take a survey that I've already created, and I'm going to show you how to clone that survey, because once you build one and you have it looking the way you want, you don't have to create one from scratch anymore. You can just clone them and make just simple adjustments inside of them as you need it. So I've got this one here. This is the a one-on-one call screen for 1010. So I'm just going to clone this. See what I did there? On the top right of every one of these surveys, you have these 3 dots, and when you click that, it brings up this menu to either clone it or delete it. I click clone, and then every time you click clone, there's 2 things that happen. Number 1, your new survey that you just cloned becomes the very first one. So that's where it's always going to be. I mean, whenever you clone, you're like, well, where did it go? It's always this first one. And then it always says copy of, and then whatever you had named it before. So that's how you know which one is the right one. And so now what I'm going to do, instead of creating a new one, I'm going to click on Edit. And this is going to take us into that build phase that I told you. This is the first screen that you see when you go to create a new survey, or in this case, edit an existing one. It always goes build, design, configure, and then publish, like we talked about earlier. So let me show you these elements that are on this page. You've got your welcome page here, and basically a welcome page for you marketers is another word for landing page. So in some cases, you want to use a landing page for your survey to kind of tell people what's happening, maybe what they're going to get. In my case here, as you can see, I don't have one here. But if I did want to add one, all I'd have to do is drag welcome page over to this box at the top, and then it brings up this builder. It's a super simple builder. You have access to all the copy on the page. So if you wanted to change your title of your survey here, maybe put some benefits on there with maybe like a good headline, a sub-headline. If there's anything you don't want to be on this page, you could just click these green buttons over here, the sliders, don't slide it. You can't slide it. You just click on it, and you can turn those elements on and off. You can add an image or a video to your welcome screen. Again, think of this as like a landing page, right? So if you have a video that you want to use to describe what maybe what you're offering for them to take your survey, or if you just need an image, if you just want to put an image that represents kind of what the survey is all about, totally fine as well. As you can kind of see here, this is where the image would show up just straight in the middle. The video shows up in the exact same place. For videos, you can use any video sharing service that has embed code, so pretty much all of them. Facebook, I know, does. YouTube does. Vimeo, Wistia, pretty much any video sharing service that has the little embed code that comes with it. You just paste that right in here, and it pops the video right on the middle part there. You can customize the actual button text. And just so you know, once that button is clicked, the person is taken to the first question of your survey. All right. So I'm going to click X. I'm going to discard my changes. The reason I don't use a welcome page on this survey is because I'm actually going to send you guys to the survey, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it's for. And so there's really no need for a landing page. It's just one extra step. And so I would do the same thing if I was sending out a link in an email. I would explain, hey, here's what it is. Here's what you get. Here's what here's why you would do it in the email. So I wouldn't probably, in that case, send them to a landing page either. I would send them straight to the first question. I would probably use a landing page if I were putting a post on, like, Facebook, for instance. I just put it on my page. I'm like, hey, everybody, can you guys answer a few questions for me? I'll give you this, that, or the other. And then I would rephrase the question and the offer again on the welcome page. So there's the option of using it or not is completely up to you, and depending on where you have your traffic coming from is why you would use it. So let's jump into the next part here, which are the questions. And so you've got 4 different types of elements that you can use when you're building out your questions. You've got your short text, which is just like the 1 or 2 words, maybe a sentence at best. You just want a short answer from them. It's open-ended, but you're not looking for paragraphs using the short text box. You're looking for the long answers and, of course, the long text box. And I have one here. You can tell which element you're using over here by the little graphic that's next to each question. You see you've got the long text image there, you've got the radio button text there, and you've got the checkbox. And if you want to add a question, all you've got to do is just drag that over here and complete the information. That's how you add it. Now to edit and to add your questions in, let's take a look at some of these. We've got this Q1. One thing I want to point out is where it says question name. This is not where you put like the name of the question. This is where you actually go in and ask the question. And I'll give you guys a link to this so you can see exactly what this survey looks like once we're done. So as you can see here, instead of giving it a name, what I'm saying is, so I know how to help you on our call, what part of bucket.io have you struggled with the most, right? So this is what they'll see when they hit your survey. And then you've got the option of adding a question description. But the other options on this, on the long text, and you get this on all your long text elements, is you have the option to choose the text box height, all right? So in this case, you have the choice between 1 and 4 rows. They can enter as many rows as they want as they're typing. The 1 to 4 rows is kind of a psychological thing, right? So if you show 4 rows, it lets them know that they can enter a bunch of text, right? If it's just 1 row, then it looks like they can enter some text. The more rows you add, the more it looks like they can enter. You can make the question required. Always make your question required by checking this box here. If you don't want it required, just simply uncheck it, and it won't be required. You can't uncheck it, though, if you're calling it your single most important question. All right. And this is something that I really want to point out. If you're using long text form, the long text element, if it's the only one that you have in your survey, always make sure you check this box, because what that does is it tells Bucket, hey, give this additional analysis so that so that Bucket can help you score each of your responses. If you don't check it, then Bucket doesn't know, and you don't get nearly as much value out of Bucket's analysis on your surveys. So always make sure if you have only one to check this box. If you have multiple long text forms in your survey, what you want to do is choose the question that holds the most weight over your analysis and check that as the single most important question. That way, Bucket, because you can only choose one, so just make sure it literally is the most important question of your survey, and Bucket will help you with some analysis on that for your reporting, which I'll show you here in a second. I'm gonna hit cancel on that. Another thing to point out, guys, and this is something that I wish somebody had told me early on, it was that if you open, let's say I have this question open, right? And let's say I make a change on it. Let's just say I just wanted to add something in the question part here, and then I don't save it. And then I come over here and I open up another question, and then I save this question. Well, I lose the information that I changed up here. So always make sure you're only editing one question at a time. Because if you leave them all open and you don't save the changes on each one, the one you do save will cause you to lose changes on the others. So does that make sense to everybody? Yes. Awesome. Okay, good. So yeah, change and save immediately. That is that's correct. All right, so let me just point out a couple of other things here before we get on, because again, the questions are the most important part of your survey, right? I'm gonna hit cancel on this. So we've got, so I pointed out we've got long text, we've got radio buttons, and for those of you who aren't familiar with using radios and checkboxes, radio buttons are when you can only answer one, right? So a yes or no question type deal, or multiple choice, but you can only select one of them. Checkboxes are when you can check, it's a multiple choice, but then they can check all the answers if they want to. There's also a feature on Bucket that when you add an other option, what it does is you can see here, it adds it to the very bottom so that you don't have to type in other. But then using this option here, if they choose other, it opens up a short text box so that they can fill in an answer. And these are great for surveys because let's say you have an idea of what people will answer, but if you add other, then it lets them tell you something you might not know about them, right? So in this case here, we've got one on here. So why would you use Bucket for surveys, for segmentation funnels, or other? We've learned a few things that we didn't know people thought Bucket did, right? And so I highly recommend in your survey always choosing another if you're not sure whether or not you've got everything, all the options available. So once you've added your questions in, and you've got your survey looking the way you want it to as far as questions are concerned, your next step is to add a contact information screen. And this is a like an opt-in screen for your survey. All right, so this would come. This screen shows up after they take the survey. They answer all the questions. The next step is for them to enter their contact information so that you can contact them later about the survey. Right? You have, again, if this looks familiar to the welcome page, it's because it's exactly the same thing. You can edit your headline, subhead, all of the copy on the page you have access to. You can also add an image or a video on this page if you need, if you just need to give them more of a reason to give you their contact information. And everything on this, all the questions, or I'm sorry, the responses like name, phone number, other, those are optional. The only element on here that has to be filled in is the email address. Email is not optional. If you're using a contact information screen, you have to ask for the email. Okay. So if you decide, I don't really want to ask them for their email again and again and again, you don't have to have a contact information screen. But if you don't have that, then you won't know who basically filled out your survey. So if it's an anonymous survey, that's okay. But if you want to know who's filling this thing out and be able to reach out to them later either through email or phone, based on their responses, then you obviously want to use a contact information screen. All right, and then once they click this continue button, they're taken to the thank you page. And the thank you page is, if you don't add a custom thank you page, Bucket just basically says, thank you, your survey is over, and that's it. But if you do add a custom thank you page, you just drag this over here, like you did with all the other stuff, and then this brings you to your thank you page builder. And as you can see here, it looks exactly the same as the contact info page and the welcome page, right? Same exact concept. You can edit everything, add images, videos. The only difference on this screen is that now you've got your button here. What you can do now is link them out to wherever you want them to go after they've taken the survey. So in this case, what I'm going to give you guys when I send you the link to this survey is a link to the Bucket Specialist calendar so that you can schedule a one-on-one call. You might send them to a PDF or a download or a coupon if you have an e-commerce store. Or you might do exactly like we're doing here and send them to your calendar or a blog post or your Facebook page. Whatever you want to send them, this is where you'll do that. And you just put this button URL in here and give them the call to action. You can send them off. If you don't have anywhere to send them, but you still want to give them a customized message thanking them for taking your survey, you can just turn that button right off. And that's your thank you page. So now we've looked at, I'm going to discard the changes because I already have it the way I want it. So far we've looked at the building phase of your survey. We've looked at the welcome page, we've looked at all the different elements for the questions that you can add, the contact info screen, and the thank you page. Once you have these added, you are ready to move on to the design phase. And like I said before, the design phase is now we're going to start putting some color on this thing, right? Start making it look like it's ours. So if you wanted to, like you see here, I've got the logo, the bucket.io logo added. To add your own logo, you just click on header, and where it says choose a logo from your desktop, you just upload that logo, and boom, it shows up here on the left. So the logo will always show up on the left. You can't move it to the center or anywhere else. It always is left justified like this, just your standard logo. You can add a footer. So if you wanted to add like a privacy policy, you do that here. So the way that you add links, it would have to be the links on your own website, right? Because you're not going to get additional links inside of the bucket funnel. So let's say if you wanted to add a privacy policy, what you would do is turn on this nav 1, and you would type in privacy, and then paste the link to your privacy policy there, and then that shows up down here in the footer. If you wanted to do terms of service, maybe a link to your homepage or whatever you wanted to do, you put those links in there just like this. Or if you don't want a navigation menu, just turn it off and nav disappears. You can do the same thing with footer text, and you can turn on or off. As long as you've got a pro account, you could turn off the bucket branding logo. And I believe it is turned off by default. All right, so if you wanted to change the fonts, you would just come over here and change the fonts and font size. This changes it across your entire funnel or your entire survey. And if you wanted to add a background image, so you see here I've got these Legos in the background. Just come over here and upload those. If you don't have an image, but you do want it to be more than just white on white, you could click on background and then just change the color. Be aware though, and the reason you notice I'm not clicking on this right now is if you have the upload and you've got it the way you want it, and you click on background, it will remove the image, and then you have to go find it and upload it again. And so that's why I'm hovering versus clicking. So I'm going to click, and another thing too, just to point out, and this is just kind of a pro tip, I'm going to point it out. You're still probably going to do it. I still do it every now and then. But to get back, once you click inside of here, to get back to this menu, you just click that. You see that kind of gray and white arrow? you're going to do this, and if you don't, well, you're just awesome, but I do it a lot. I always accidentally click on this one, which takes you all the way back to all of your surveys, right? Don't be me. Click on the black or the gray and white arrow. What I just clicked on is this color. This, to me, is the most important part of the design phase. This is because a lot of times you see palette and you're like, oh, I don't need to change it. I'll just leave it the way it is. The thing is, what I've found is that people using the default bucket.io color settings, people have a hard time reading. We just use a really light color set, which works for us because it's a software company. We use a lot of customization. For you, putting out a survey, I highly recommend you come in here and just darken everything. And the way you do that is you click on the element that you want to darken, and then just drag that on down. Just darken everything. You can darken or you can change the color of your buttons, the actual answers, the body text, the headline, and all that. And remember earlier when I did a copy or a clone of the survey? What happens when you clone is you get to keep all this stuff. So you make the change once, and if you have the same kind of color scheme throughout all of your stuff, it'll always save it. So you only have to really make the change once. If you do client work, obviously you'll have to do it for each client. So if you wanted to white label and use their branding, then you would need to change it for each one. But this is where you come to do that. One other thing I want to point out is you see the button color here where I changed the button. What that also changes is the color of the progress bar. So whenever you have, I'll show you how to add a progress bar in a second, but whatever color your button is the color of the progress bar as well. So just something to be aware of. Then also, another thing to point out, always, 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 if you make a change here, on the top right up here it says Save Changes, always click that. Save Changes. I've done so many times where I have not clicked Save Changes that I feel the need to always tell you guys about those little save change pitfalls. All right, so once you've got this thing looking, you've got it polished, it's looking the way you want it to, your next step is to jump over to the configure phase. I'm going to discard the changes. I think I did something I didn't want to. Keep. All right, so this is the main configure screen. Now, there's a few things I want to point out on this part of the configure screen that you might think I'm kind of crazy for pointing out, but listen to this. So you see here on the global settings for Bucket where it says Discover Survey Name. This is the name of your survey. This is what you're going to see back on. Remember I showed you the screen where I told you to name it something you would easily recognize or instantly recognize? Well, when you clone something, remember I told you it says copy of and then the one you cloned? I highly, highly recommend you get over here ASAP and change this name. I'm going to do that right now. And I would have already done it if I wasn't, walking through this demo with you. So what I'm doing here is this is just the naming convention I use. You don't have to use the dates. You can use whatever it takes for you to immediately recognize what it is you're looking at. The internal name is not really important. It doesn't really show. This is the only screen it really shows up on. So again, the big idea is to make sure this is instantly recognizable. This you can just kind of use it for your own records. This next line here, which says target number of responses, this tells Bucket how to judge the performance and report on the performance of your survey. This number can be whatever you want it to be, and you can have as many responses as you want. So I have 100 in here, but I'm not limited to just 100 responses. What Bucket will do is show me, if I put 100 in here, they'll tell me how close I am to hitting that, so I know how much more work I need to do to get people to respond to it. I think it actually defaults to 250. I just switched this to 100 in another demo and cloned it. But again, this number can be whatever you want it to be, and you can have as many responses as you want. This just shows you how the survey is performing. The progress bar I just mentioned earlier, you could turn this on over here. You also have the option of adjusting the starting position of the progress bar, which is a great idea to let people know that they're not going to be sitting answering your questions for the next 10 minutes of their lives, right? So when you start the survey, if you could start it at 20% or more, it looks like they're almost done, right? And so you're going to get more people completing that first question if they don't think, oh my gosh, how many are there going to be on top of this one, right? So you have that option. You have the option of adding a continue button, a back button, and then of course adding tracking code. Like if you have any special tracking code that you like to use that's not Facebook or Google, because you can add those things over here, and I'll show you that in a second. The second most important part of the screen besides the name is this meta information over here. Because what this information, what this will do, the reason you do not want to leave this blank is because once you paste this link out in the wild, whether it's Gmail or Facebook or anywhere, what the link will do is most of the times nowadays, the platform that you pasted the link on will show a description of that link so people will know what they're clicking on. And if you left this as untitled, then all they're going to see is untitled, no description, bucket.io. Literally zero reason for them to click on it. As you can see here, what I've got is get live one-on-one help with bucket.io, and schedule a call with a bucket specialist here. So you know exactly what you're getting into when you see the link out there. So again, it's super important because if no one clicks your link, no one's going to take your survey. You'll have nothing to analyze, and well, that's a sad day for everyone. You can also add an image here so that it's just further marketing. Increase that click-through rate when you are putting your link out in front of the public. All right. So that's all the stuff you do on this page. These next few pages, I'm going to show you kind of just a few. I'm going to walk you through the rest of these screens. This one is the direct integrations. Remember earlier I told you if you had MailChimp, Entreport, or Infusionsoft, this is where you would come to manage those. After you've added them to your account, you'll come over here and say, you know what, for this funnel, I'm going to be using my Entreport. And you click on the integrate. I just click the integrate button. And then what I would do here is walk through and tag my questions and answers. So if you, and I don't know if you're an Entreport user or not, but in Entreport you can they use tags. So based on the question that gets asked, or the way that it gets answered, like let's say I've got this, are you enrolled in the ask method, yes or no? If you say yes, and I can send to my Entreport the yes tag, or ask method user tag. If no, I could say non-ask method user, right? So that's how you would be tagged if you filled out this this form. I could also add your response to a field if I wanted to put, you know, maybe like so I have your long text answer. I could put that in you know, its own field in Entreport. And so you'll want to do this. This will help you with your segmentation later on, so that once people answer these questions, it's stored inside your email service provider so that you can customize who gets what emails. Does that make sense? And I'm going to show you guys how to do that if you don't have, and it's the same thing with the MailChimp and the Infusionsoft. It's the same process. The screens are a little bit different, but not so much that we don't have to go through each one. You know, you do it the same way. If you don't have Entreport, MailChimp, or Infusionsoft, and we're adding more direct integrations. So if we don't have yours in there yet, know that we are adding new ones pretty much every several weeks. So we're adding new ones all the time. But in the meantime, if you have Aweber, Drip, ActiveCampaign, I don't know, any of the other ones, what we do is we use a service called Zapier. And if you're not familiar with Zapier, Zapier is a system that connects web softwares to each other. And so in this case, I'm sorry, brain just kind of stopped working on me. Bucket.io is the software, and your email service provider is the software, right? And so Zapier connects the two, because Bucket doesn't send any emails. Bucket only collects information and so that you can segment them later on. But then what Bucket does is they send that information that gets collected, either in your survey or your segmentation funnel. They send it to Zapier, and then Zapier sends that to your email marketing service so that you can, from there, go on to email them based on what they told you in the survey or in the segmentation funnel. Does that make sense? And I'm not going to go super deep into this, into the setup of this. It's really simple, and we've got some really good training. I'll actually point you to that here in a little bit if anybody wants me to do that. In the Q&A section, just let us know, and we'll get you a link to that. Let me do this real quick because I did not follow my cardinal rule, which is save changes. All right. All right, so we looked at the Zapier. Okay, so we've looked at direct integrations. We've looked at Zapier integrations. Let's take a quick look at the Facebook pixel. So you can add your Facebook pixel into any one of your funnels. You can use multiple Facebook pixels, not per funnel. You can only do one per funnel, but you can add a Facebook pixel from advertiser account A into this funnel. And then if you've got another client or something like that, you can use their Facebook pixel on another funnel. Does that make sense? And the way you do that is you just turn it on, paste the code in here, and then you can configure the events based on the responses to your questions. But if you don't turn on the events, if all you're doing is tracking and building an audience based on who's coming in and taking your survey or going through your segmentation funnel, you could do that. You could do conversion pixels just by over here, just saying, hey, this is the type of conversion that it is, and turning that on if they once they hit the thank you page. Field logic. This is a more advanced conversion tool. I'll be talking about this in detail later, but basically what you do here is you can take the responses from a previous question and use that in the question section of your survey or your segmentation funnel. So for instance, if someone says they're a man or a woman, right? I could later say, hey, as a man, which of these most affects you? And so I could say that because I say, over here I call it gender, and I would just call up gender later on in another question. So that's how that works. And like I said, I'll be covering some of these and how to implement all this stuff in the webinar this afternoon. But just to jump over real quick to these other screens, because I still want to show you guys some reporting and some stuff on the segmentation funnel side. On the Google Analytics, what you're looking at here is you just paste your Google Analytics code, and then you can configure your analytics events so that you can track what people are doing, where they're coming from, what kind of answers they're giving based on all that information. Just have a good old field day in Google Analytics if you are that kind of tracking person. And then the last option here is called UTM variables. If you're not familiar with UTM variables, don't worry about it. But if you are, basically what UTM variables are, or UTM codes do, is they let you pass information from your link into wherever you're sending people, into your tracking, so that you can keep up with things. Like if you have affiliates that are promoting your business or your offers, if you are tracking multiple sources of traffic and you want to pass that information through, Bucket lets you pass it all the way through the funnel and off to your own website. So if you send people to your website after they've gone through Bucket, you can pass this stuff all the way through. You can even, if you're more advanced and you've got advanced programming on your website, you can even pass off the responses from Bucket based on the answers that they give. You can pass that all the way through to your own website and use all that in your programming. And so that is it. So once you've gone through, you've done all these configurations, you've got everything set up, turned on the way you like it, your next step is to publish. I'm going to discard changes. I think I saved real quick. Make sure I don't end up with a copy of. I'm telling you guys, you don't know what a nightmare is until you try to surf through copy of copy of copy of. So we got that right. So let's go to publish. Again, you get one last chance to decide which of these you want it to be. In this case, like I told you guys before, we're going to use full page because I'll be sending you a link to the survey. What we'll do now is we're going to choose the domain to use for the link. You get, just right off the bat, by default, you get access to bucket forms, bucket pages, bucket quizzes, and bucket surveys. As you start adding your custom domains in, like I mentioned before, these will start showing up in your dropdown. So once you've added a custom domain, it's verified, it's ready to go. You just come down here, choose that one. Otherwise, you can just choose one of the bucket ones. And then you scroll down here and you hit this publish button. If you didn't add a welcome page, or if you're missing anything, Bucket says, hold on a second, before you publish, just in case you forgot, here's what's missing. And you can say, oh, goodness, I'm glad you brought that up. Let me go fix that. Or you can just say, I know, publish anyways. And then you're given your link. And this is the link that you will use to promote your survey or your segmentation funnel. And you'll click this link here, copy, and you're ready to go. You can just paste it right into a browser and see your beautiful survey in real life. And I'll send you guys this link here in a second. But first, let's do this. I want to jump back out of here. I want to show you the discovery reports. Again, because now that you're collecting information from people, you want to be able to use that, right? And so Bucket, one of the top features of Bucket is the way that we help you analyze your surveys. Instead of just kind of giving you the needle in the haystack, we actually kind of point you where the needles are, and I'll show you how we do that. Here, we've got one here, 110 responses. So let's take a look at that. What I just did, actually, let me go back, because I want you to see exactly how to get here. What I just did was I clicked on the analytics of, let's see this where it says analytics. I clicked on analytics of the survey I want to look at. And remember before I told you, based on how many responses total that you put in the configuration, it would tell you, kind of help you understand the performance of your survey. So we can see here, I've got about 69.6% of the survey completed because I was looking for 250. And out of the people that actually saw the survey, 102% filled it out. So I guess somebody went and did it a couple times. A couple people did. And then the opt-in rate on this one is obviously 0 because there's not an opt-in, there's not a contact information page on here. But then you can see also I've got these conversion statistics for each of the questions, so that I know out of 158 people that saw this question, 110 actually filled it out. And then we've got this other cool feature down here called word cloud. And if you're not familiar with how a word cloud works, basically what it does is it tells you, it looks at how many times a word is used, and the more often a word is used, the bigger it is, right? And this is highly valuable to you because when you have people start filling out these questions for you, you're able to start seeing, okay, well, this looks like an issue. Like for instance, let's see here. The question we asked was, what are some issues you've had inside of Bucket? And so let's do this. Let's get rid. One of the things you can do is get rid of words, right? So more, and you can just get rid of kind of just some regular words. And so now we're looking at webinars, integration, time, videos. So what I'm looking for here is starting to understand where are some places I can go in these responses, because you can actually see the responses themselves, right? But where do I start? Like if I've got 100 plus responses, where do I start? The word cloud tells me, hey, start looking where people are typing in the word webinars. What are they asking? Are they telling you what kind of webinar they want? and again, yours obviously aren't going to say these words, but you get what I'm saying. So based on this word cloud, it gives you kind of a starting point when you're analyzing the responses that are getting filled in. So hopefully that helps you when you start looking at your the responses. I find it to be a very, very helpful tool when I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Like, what webinar do we go run? Or what should I be looking for when I'm helping people on like a one-on-one call, right? So that's how the reporting feature of the surveys works. What I want to get into now is I want to walk you guys through some of the differences in segmentation funnel, because, like I said before, the process is identical as far as the build phase, design phase, the configure screens, and publishing. All that is the same for both the Discover surveys and the segmentation funnels. The difference is in what you're able to do with the segmentation funnels. These are like quizzes or assessments. And if you've never seen a segmentation funnel before, if you're not familiar with what that is, think of it like this. A regular funnel, where most, just your standard practice, they will say, hey, here's this thing that I'm offering. Everyone who sees this gets the same exact thing. The segmentation funnel, however, says, hey, here's these things that I offer, but tell me who you are and I'll get you the right thing. So what you're able to do is ask questions, kind of like you did with the survey, but this time, instead of getting all these open-ended questions, you're letting them tell you what their problem is, and then based on their problem, you're able to give them a specific customized solution and a customized outcome. So not everybody gets the same thing. They get what they need based on what you offer. And the reason that works so well in marketing is because when people feel like, oh wow, this is exactly what I need for my exact problem, the conversions go through the roof compared to just doing it, everyone gets the same thing, right? So that's how a segmentation funnel works. That's the difference if you weren't familiar with using these before. Let me jump back over here. I'm going to show you where to go to create and manage your segmentation funnels. So before we clicked on Discover on the top menu, now we're going to click on Segment. And so you've got, now here's all your segmentation funnels. Now, when you go to create a segmentation funnel, it's exactly the same as before, but this case, since you're using segmentation funnels as like your front-end marketing in most cases, you get more than just a button or a full page. You also get an entry pop-up, splash screen, or an exit pop-up. And basically what's happening here is they're all kind of the same, but what Bucket does is it gives you the code that you can just install on your website if you wanted to do an entry page or a splash screen or an exit pop-up. So everything's the same, it just gives you the code so that you can add that onto your website so it does the functionality for you. I'm going to close this because, again, like before, instead of just building one from scratch and just making one up, I'm going to actually show you the back end here of one that's already created. And I'm going to show you, so I just clicked on one here. As you can see, like I mentioned earlier, the build screen is the first screen you always see here. And there's the major differences. Number one is that instead of, notice here, instead of one thank you page, I have multiple what are called outcome pages. And so when you know the outcomes that you're going to be offering, you can add those here and like basically just drag outcome over and you can create it from here. And I'm going to walk you through one of these now. So I've got this outcome called hitting my goals and deadlines. When I open that, I've got, you see where it says outcome page or external redirect. So if you already have sales pages or product pages that you use in your business, I always say just use the external redirect and then send people straight to those pages. If you don't, if you're building from scratch, new thank you pages, or not new thank you pages, but like new product pages or sales pages, you can use this outcome page. And what do you think it's going to look like? You guessed it, like the regular builder from before. We got the welcome page builder, we've got all that other stuff. But these pages are customized based on the response that the responses that your audience gives you when they're answering questions. So, and I'm going to actually walk you guys through a preview of this in a second. But remember earlier I said you could add videos to these screens? Well, this is what it looks like. So, this one's a Wistia video embed. So you just add the video there. And one thing here is you'll notice that the button text and the URL, in this case, goes to an actual order form. So you could actually make the sale on this page and send them off to checkout or PayPal or whatever you use to collect money from people. You can literally make the sale on this page through like a video sales letter or just using written copy and send them off to that. Or you can use this page as kind of like a pre-frame, right? Tell them, hey, based on what you told me, here's your thing. Now go check out this awesome product over here. Like let's say you're doing affiliate marketing. You can kind of set them up so that by the time they go actually read the sales page, they're in a frame of mind thinking, wow, this is going to be the perfect solution for me, right? So these are all things you can do on these outcome pages. And like I said before, let me discard changes here. You can have as many of these as you need for your outcomes. So let me just jump up here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna hit preview real quick. So as you can see here, I've got the welcome page set up that lets them walk through what they're gonna get if they answer this, a free book. They click yes, I want my free copy. And so you've got these questions here, right? What's the number one roadblock holding you back in your business? Hitting my goals and deadlines. We just saw that page. Now look at this screen here. Remember before on the contact page it was just like, hey, fill in your name and email. Well, on this one, notice where it says, I'll show you how to use Business Mastery to start hitting your goals and deadlines today. Well, that matches exactly what I just answered. So hitting my goals and deadlines is an issue for me. So it's telling me if I fill this form out, you're going to show me how to use this book that I want to fix my exact problem, right? So I'll just put my name in, and I'll put a little test email, hit continue, and now I'm on to this outcome page. And it says, hey, your copy of Business Mastery is on its way. While you're waiting, check out this quick 3-minute video that reveals one simple way to, what? Always hit your goals and deadlines. And so let's jump back over to Bucket. I do something like that on each of these outcome pages. Let's do getting detailed fill. So on this one, while you're waiting, check out the quick 3-minute video that reveals a simple way for getting detailed feedback on your business from the only people who matter. So all of a sudden, you see what I'm saying? So now you've got these customized outcomes based on what the person chooses in the funnel as part of while they're going through your funnel. Instead of just taking their name and email and saying, okay, great, you're going to get this book, it's going to solve your problems. Here, give me some money. Now you're able to say, hey, based on your issue, this is how this could really solve your problem. And now how do we get people that once they make that choice, do we get them to the right outcome page? The way you do that is up here on, what you'll do, if you just highlight over the question, you'll see these icons pop up. And you see this one here that's kind of orange and says outcomes mapped. What you do, it's super simple. You just grab here, I'll just kind of delete these real quick so you can see how this works. So if someone chooses hitting my goals and deadlines, where do I send them? To the hitting my goals and deadlines outcome. If someone's problem is knowing what's working today, just send them to the outcome page for that one. And this one. Now, notice in this example, I've got one answer that could possibly go to 2, but you can't drag and connect to 2 different ones. You can only connect to 1. So what would you do in this situation? Just think, what would you do? What I came up with, and what you probably will find to be easiest, is to use what's called branching logic. And branching logic, if you're not familiar, it's when they answer a certain way, you take them to another part of your survey or your segmentation funnel. And so what I've got here is this branching logic icon. See, it's this little blue thing. I'll click on that, and everyone who answers one of these top 3 responses, I drag them over here to where it says jump to the end of the funnel. But if they answer this question that says I'm feeling overwhelmed, don't know what to do next, where I have 2 options, and I can only give them one option for mapping on the other question, I take them to the next question. So they don't get to skip to the end. They have to go to the next question. See how I did that? Just the same way we did the mapping, right? I'm going to hit save on that. And now I've got this next question where I go a little bit deeper. I say, hey, one more question. Is it, what did I do? All right. Is it technology or business ideas that overwhelm you, right? And then so now I can drag them to the correct, I can map them to the correct outcome. Does this make sense to everybody how I came up with that? And so now, based on what they've chosen, I can take them to the exact outcome page for them. And then as you can see here, I also have multiple lead capture pages. Again, this works exactly the same way as the outcome page. You don't have to do it this way. You can get away with just using one opt-in screen. But if you find that you need more customization to improve the conversions, you can add an opt-in page for each outcome. And the way you do that, and notice these look, again, identical to the contact information screen and all the others, but the one difference with these is that you can actually choose which outcome this opt-in screen goes to. So in this case, where it says map outcome, this lead capture page will be shown depending on the outcome page. You just choose which one it goes to. In this case, getting detailed feedback on my business. So now over here it says step 2, fill out the form below, and I'll show you how to use Business Mastery to get detailed feedback on your business today. So you see how that whole process is customized if you add the multiple lead capture pages that go with the outcome pages. If all this is a little kind of confusing for you, again, I'm just trying to show you the stuff here. This isn't supposed to be the webinar where I go super deep. Let me back out here. What I just did is I clicked back to the main kind of section. I highly recommend, and if you'd like me to, I can paste this link in here, or you can just jump over and help. What I did, I clicked on help, and I've got this great webinar replay that says how the world's most successful quizzes work and how to build a high converting survey funnel in Bucket. These two links have recorded webinars where we covered this in detail. Highly recommend them. If you're building quizzes, these are really good resources to start with, just to kind of walk you back through those and go super deep. So that's the main thing that I wanted to cover with you guys. There are segmentation funnel reporting. Let me just jump into one of those real quick. See if I have, because I know we're kind of getting a little over time, and I appreciate you guys for being on this call. So we have, this is what I just did is I clicked on the analytics for a survey, or not a survey, for a segmentation funnel. And this, you can see, kind of tells you what the performance is. So it's had 154, 92.9% completed. So basically, the second someone clicks the start button and goes through it, 92% went all the way through, answered all the questions, but it's only got an opt-in rate of about 11.7%, so 18 opt-ins. So what does that tell you guys? Tells me that the opt-in screen probably needs to be reconfigured, and you have the copy kind of fixed on that, or the expectations on the front end. So you get all these cool performance analytics so that you can make that type of decision instead of just getting this this funnel. You're like, oh, no one's answering or filling out the email. Now it'll tell you all the way through what's happening throughout your funnel. You can see where people are dropping off, maybe what the issue might be, so you can make these decisions in real time. All right? So putting it all together, like I said earlier, the discovery survey gives you the market insight. You're asking these people these open-ended questions. You're figuring out who they are, what they want, how you can best serve them, and how to say it back to them. And then the segmentation funnels let you take that information, take what you learned, and build out these highly customized experiences, like I said before, that really dramatically increase the conversions. So if you do, guys, I'm going to jump over here to the chat here in a second. I know we've got our awesome support specialist answering questions in there. I'll see if there's anything that needs to be addressed live. But if you guys have any issues, anytime, you can always jump over to the knowledge base, like I pointed out earlier, and we literally cover every feature inside of that. If you need to connect with a support specialist, like if you've looked at the help, it just doesn't look like Bucket's working for you, or it's not working correctly, you've got this little smiley face down here. And if you click on that, you can start a conversation with one of our support specialists. Excuse me. And the way that works is it fires off an email so they get it directly, and then they get back in touch with you either through this chat or through email directly. So it's not like you might be used to like live chat. It's close to that, but it's more, this is just a ticketing system that lets them know what your issue is, and they can get with you ASAP. You can also, let me jump back over here, get in touch with us at support@bucket.io. So if you're having major issues and things just aren't working the way you thought they would, this is a great way, this is the great thing to use, is support@bucket.io. Remember earlier I promised I would let you guys jump on a one-on-one call, totally free, with a bucket.io specialist to help you, guide you through getting, whether it's a survey or a segmentation funnel built, or just kind of tweaking or just giving you a once-over on whatever you have built. I'm going to give you that link now. Let me jump over here. We actually built this together. It was the survey that we built. I like doing it so that I can kind of kill two birds with one stone, right? I'm going to get this link, and what I just did is I clicked on link. What you can always do is, if you already have a survey published or a segmentation funnel published, instead of diving all the way in and finding the link, you can just click on link, copy, and then you can come over and paste it wherever you want. In this case, I'm going to paste it in the chat. So let me do this real quick. So if you need to get out of here, you totally can. I know we're a few minutes over, and I appreciate your time. All right, so I just pasted that link. Can you guys, real quick, if you are still here, can you let me know if you can see that link in the chat? I just pasted it. Let me pull this thing up. Yes, yes, I can see the link. Yep, awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to, let me just, what I really want to do is let you guys know that this isn't, I'm not giving you a link to talk to someone who's going to try to sell you something. Like if it was me and I was getting a free call, I would think, well, what's the catch, right? The catch is we want you using the software. We want you using the system. We know it's new. It's a new technology. I mean, it's literally only existed for, it came out this year, and it doesn't exist in this form anywhere else. So there's people like me, and I'm one of the bucket specialists you could be talking to, who've used it extensively. Thousands of surveys, thousands of quizzes, and so anything that you might be having an issue with, or just a question about, or just not 100% sure on, I would use this call. I would get on it and walk through with someone like myself. It's a no matter, and literally there is no too big or too small issue. A lot of times it's literally just, can you just look at this thing and make sure I'm doing it right, make sure I'm using the right tool, make sure I'm using, getting the full, using every tool to my advantage. Or sometimes you're just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Can you point me in the right direction? And we're totally happy to help you do that. It's a 15-minute, it's not a phone call. Like I'm not going to, someone's not going to call you on the telephone. It's a Zoom chat, so you'll get a link to a Zoom meeting, right, where we'll walk through your account with you. You'll do all the pointing and clicking. We'll just kind of be sitting back there saying, oh, no, click that. Answering your questions, making sure that you are on the right track so that you can get out of the software, get it up and running on its own, generating your leads, and helping you make sales without having to think about it the whole time. All right? It literally is all about giving you the peace of mind that you're doing things the right way and that you can, get things set up. I haven't had a call yet where someone wasn't like, this was awesome, this was super helpful. I got a bunch of little testimonials I'm not going to read here, but just so you know, it literally is about getting you in, getting the software figured out so that you can run your business. It's totally free, like I said. And we do have a limited number. I mean, there's not, unlimited spaces. So if you are using Bucket, if you're a paid customer, if you've used it, a one-on-one call before, it's totally fine to use it again. If you haven't, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And yeah, this just jump on that link that I just sent out. Add yourself to the schedule. We have added some nighttime, some evening schedules in there. I do know this for a fact. Tonight when we do the conversion tool stuff, it's going to get jam packed. So you're actually kind of lucky that you're here now. You can kind of pick and choose from what's in there. Tonight it's gonna get full. So I would use that link I just gave you and get yourself one of those one-on-one calls. All right, so we're about 9 minutes after. Again, guys, I totally appreciate you. I'm gonna look through here. Hennis, is there anything that you see like popping up more than once that we could address live, or do you think we kind of got it all through the chat?
I think we get it all covered. Mostly.
Awesome. Well, that is exactly what I like to hear. You guys, our support specialists are amazing. Thank you for jumping on and helping with this so that I could get in and get out and kind of explain these things. Again, this call is recorded. You're going to get a link to it. I invite you to get on the webinar tonight. I know it's kind of hard getting on 2 webinars in a day. So if you can't make it to the one this afternoon, it will also be recorded. But if you have questions about getting your conversions up on your surveys or your segmentation funnels, that's the place to get those questions answered. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. And again, get on that, get yourself a one-on-one call scheduled. And we're more than happy to talk to you and get you moving forward. Awesome. See you guys later.